Sometimes you just need to turn off the distractions, get to work, and find the universal truths that affect us all and that govern our universe. This is a good place to do that. Mark Fouts and Kat Hobson will try to help with that a bit by bringing fantastic guests. Let's see what's happening tonight.
Welcome to Universal Truths with Mark Fouts, and I'm coming to you from WBHM-DB in beautiful downtown Birmingham, Alabama, and I live in beautiful Pensacola, Florida, and tonight it's going to be me, so we are going to talk about the dark side of paranormal experiences, because the majority of my experiences with paranormal are usually like 80% wonderful, spiritual, uplifting, teaching, wonderful things, experiences that make you feel great. And then, like anything else, there's always a dark side. And there's so many people that are hungry to open up their psychic abilities. And a lot of people go psychic power. It's really psychic ability. I don't like the word power. But to open up those talents and use them, but how to use them safely, because on the metaphysical dimensional layer, everyone's aura looks like a light on a foggy street. So while you're going around and you're the little light on the foggy street, other things and other spirits and other things can see that light. And sometimes you have to address issues. If you don't have your aura in working condition, or even if you do, sometimes there are things that will bother you. People go to cemeteries and pick up ghosts or discarnate things that come in their house and cause havoc. Or girls, there are people come in the store and I'll say, "Where'd you get your dead boyfriend?" They'll have a dead person they picked up somewhere, like lint. It just picked it up, static electricity, and boom, they've got somebody following them. Or someone has used a tool like using a Ouija board and getting scared and not closing the board or not using the tools. And they are something you can use. They are a tool. But we'll go over that. How can you navigate the dimensional layers that is around us without getting hurt or sick or damaged or damaging someone else? So we'll go through that. In the latter part of the show, I will teach you a little technique that I teach at the store because every meditation I do, tomorrow I have to do a past life regression. So people come in, I put them through a meditation. I teach them how to control their energy first, so that when they go into the meditation, they can experience it safely, and also they can use that technique in any metaphysical endeavor, and you can be safe. You can feel confident and not worry about getting infected, because really, we are energy beings. Everything, we are mental, but really we're frequency and energy, and it's just like being on the internet. You know, on your computer, you can get a online virus on your computer. And the same thing is for us. Our system is electromagnetic frequency and fields and plasma, and we can get infections, and we can get out of sync. We can pick up illnesses that weren't naturally occurring, because sometimes if our aura is not in functioning order, then we can get affected by what's around us. And you can also, you know, in the same thing, you know, once you understand your mechanisms, your brain, how to control your brain and your neurons, you can almost, I've seen people heal themselves by thinking. They change the frequency, they tell the body what they want, and they have improvement. Maybe sometimes they don't always get well, but they can have an improvement. And I'm actually somebody like that. Because of the way I think, my body does things that it's not really supposed to at this point. Because I have a Marfan syndrome. When I was attacked years ago, I was crushed. I mean, at one point I was paralyzed from the waist down for a couple of weeks. And I overcame it. And they didn't think I could overcome any of that. But it's not that I get away with it beautifully, that I don't have pain and everything that goes with it, but I do more than I'm supposed to be able to do. Because at one point, I remember I was ordered, I couldn't lift more than 5 pounds or 10 pounds, you know, and it was ridiculous. And the way I thought, the way I feel, and the way I did my energy made it where my body reacted differently than what I was supposed to be able to do in the physical world. So it's a very important thing for everybody to understand their energy. And if you're getting into the metaphysical world, which is really going inside, it's inner searching. It's not outside of you as much as it is inside your personal part. The outside part, you're just in nature. You're around things, and there are things that are in nature that are beautiful and sweet and kind and wonderful energies, and then there are predators. Well, we have that in the metaphysical field. You have that in the energy field. You have things that are just like a blob. They just eat other things, you know. So, or they look for somewhere to infect, or they look for a place to be. And, you know, and if you're there and you don't know what you're doing and you're kind of open, you might be the host. You might be the home. You might be the target. So we're going to kind of cover some of that. I'm going to cover stories of these kind of things, how to use tools safely, how to do because I'm very big into spiritualist techniques. I do automatic writing. I do seancing. I do all sorts of things like that. So, but the way I do them, I can do them safely. And I think that, because when you're looking to see what works for you, sometimes you want to try something different or old. But because of our attention span, which in the modern world is very short compared to what it used to be, and you have to learn to have an attention span to make sure that you're finishing everything, opening things right, closing them right. And also it's the intent, because your intent is a vibrational thing as well. And if you're doing it to mess around, you're going to get a mess. If you're doing it to get a response, you're going to get a response. But what kind of response are you looking for? Are you looking for spiritual information or expansion? Or are you looking to scare yourself? Are you looking to scare other people? Are you looking at metaphysical energy as a way to intimidate other people, which is something that is a lot more common than people realize? And I, as a person in the metaphysical community for over 42 years, I have been the victim of people trying to manipulate me or to send things to hurt me, or just because they were bitter because life wasn't giving them what they want, so they get bitter, and it's they look at it as woo-woo stuff sometimes, which you have to take the woo-woo out. There is a little bit of woo-woo, but there's also a lot of natural energy, things that occur in nature, and that's what metaphysics really are. And people start off and they think it's going to empower them to make them powerful over other people or this, and that's that. When that doesn't always happen the way they want it, then they get bitter and they want someone to pay for it. And so hopefully, you're not the one in the way of their shooting gallery. So we'll talk about that, and also in improving your aura. Your aura is a CAT scan. So when you come into contact with other people, you're already scanning them, vice versa. And how that you will learn to follow that first instinct when you meet someone. Your aura is scanning them and telling you things. And if it goes, listen to it. Don't second guess and avoid your natural CAT scan, because it's telling you the truth. It's picking up something from that person. And it all can be for good. It can all be for bad. So it's one of those things you can learn. Also, for some people like me, it's just a matter of fact. It's just another day. You get up, you have these things, you have these experiences, and then you have to understand what you're going to do with that. If it's not supposed to be around you, how to deal with that to keep that from affecting you, and how to help other people and through your energy help them to find solace, to find comfort, to find knowledge, to find the key to their inner self. Because once you find who you are and what you're really about, honestly, that you're not lying to yourself, because we as people lie to ourselves a lot. When we don't know what we want, when we don't know who we are, you have to find out who you are, what type of person you are, why you're getting into metaphysics, and what's the end game. What is it that you're really wanting from it? And because people come in and go, I want to be psychic, I want to open that up. Well, once you open that can of worms, you have to deal with it, because it doesn't just go back in the toothpaste tube. You know, you have to deal with it once it really opens, and it can be the most achingly beautiful experience, which I've experienced. It can also, depending upon who you're dealing with, it can also be frightening. And it also can be just eye-opening. I mean, to think, I experience people all the time. I go, they really, what? They think like that? They really don't think there's a problem with what they're doing, or, you know. And then you have people, right now the big thing is young people wanting to be chaos magicians. And I know other two little chaos magicians. They're cute as pie. They're not doing anything to hurt anybody or anything. But I have seen some that's what they want. They want chaos. They want chaos because their life is chaos, but they are not in control of the chaos, but they are able to dip into the bowl of life around them and cause trouble because they feel like their life is trouble. They want someone to experience what they're experiencing. They want to reflect what's happening to them. And I understand that. But it also, if they go deeper and they start dipping into stuff that's old, that they shouldn't, I've seen people die from being consumed by the energy that they thought they were going to control. And we have to kind of look at that. You have to understand you're not really in control of things after you create it. No more than you are in control of a baby. You have a baby, and you can apply and love it and treat it this way and that way and want it to be a certain way. But that baby is not controllable after a certain point. You're not in control of that. It becomes its own being. And when you create thought forms and when you pull up ancient energy and aim it at someone or magnetize it to go to a certain spot, you're not in any more control of that after a certain point. You may have a covenant or a control thing where you can sort of get it. You have the information in it to do what you want, but at a certain point, if it has enough consciousness, it's going to become its own thing. And if it goes, I don't like you, or why should I go somewhere else? You're a meal. Why should I go anywhere else and worry about that? So you got to think out of the box. If you want to do things that are that way, we'll have to deal with it. But we are going to have to go to a break. So all of you out there in the dark, don't touch that dial. I'll be right back.
Warning, the following message does not necessarily reflect the views of WBHM-DB or its hosts, guests, listeners, or of any functioning adult in general. In fact, Frank should probably seek professional help. Listener discretion is advised.
Hi there, Frank Lee here. I thought that I would spend a few moments telling you about the positivity from the network here. The overall message of para-unity and happiness, and how everyone here wants to get along with everyone out there, and how everything is just wonderful. Wait, Cat's not looking. Okay, I've got something to really tell you. Okay, so I'm going to tell you what's really going on. Honestly, all that being nice and positive crap was kind of hurting my soul, as dark as it is. So, what's really happening? Well, you see it all the time. Everybody and their brother out there has a paranormal team because they watched a couple of episodes of Ghost Hunters or some crap like that. So they go and they spend half their mortgage payment on tools and things that light up that they don't understand. And then the next logical step, after buying matching black t-shirts and posing like 90s rappers for their Facebook page, is to, of course, have their own podcast. Well, you know what? You're not going to find that crap here. What we have here at WBHM Digital Broadcasting is the best host, the best guest, bringing you real information. All of the hosts here on this network know their stuff. They are the people who have been out there doing the work, doing actual research. And no, by research, I don't mean binge watching some kind of cheesy TV show on Netflix. I mean reading books. I mean out in the field doing the legwork. And who are they interviewing on their shows? They're bringing you the people they have learned from. They're bringing you the best in the field, covering all kinds of topics, from UFOs and aliens to Bigfoot to cryptozoology to ghosts to anything you can think of, a bit strange and unexplained. It is here, and you're going to get the best information here. So stay tuned to WBHM Digital Broadcasting. Don't go anywhere. Speaking of going somewhere, I've got to go before my mic gets cut. We'll see you there on WBHM-DB.
Welcome back to Universal Truths with Mark Fouts, and coming to you from WBHM-DB in Birmingham, Alabama. And we were just talking about, tonight I'm just going to talk about the light side and the dark side and people you encounter and how to deal with them a little bit, or people you know, there's such an awakening in a way. We have these windows of opening. You know, the window opens, we experience an arc of things, you know, and then the window will close for a little while. And then again, it will open, and then people will be going, "Ooh, I haven't seen this before," you know, and then they do it again. And then the window closes, and then another cycle starts of, you know, it seems like it happens every 10 years or 7 years sometimes, if we're lucky. And it'll play itself out. Then at some point, we'll get the opportunity to do it again. Because since I've been doing metaphysics for 42 years, I've seen the window open and close. And by the end of the window closing, you know, people will be kind of worn out, because they've been pushing, doing this, dancing on the coals, and it'll start off as something and end up totally different by the end. And sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad, sometimes it's just time to reset and redo it. Now, when I started in metaphysics, it was the occult. It was not New Age. It was the occult. And this was pre-internet, you know, laptop computers. You know, if you had in the 80s, people started to have home computers, but they were huge, and my father made a career in computer work. And I remember in the 60s when they looked like refrigerators with tape reels on them. And so in the 70s and early 80s, when I started, it was the occult. And all of the older teachers and groups and people that had started the movements that are now the modern metaphysical things that we experience now, they were all dying out. So, at 1985, most of the real big stars like Sybil Leek, like Alexander, like Gerald Gardner, like Raymond Buckland, like Scott Cunningham. These people had been working for decades, and they had just started to die off. And that when they were dying out in the 80s, that's when it turned to the New Age. But when I was starting, and it was the occult, which was just fine to me because, a lot of people go, "Ooh, the occult." It wasn't like that to me when I started out. There was some spooky spooky stuff. It's really, I think, when I was coming into it, a lot of people were drawn to it. It's like Catholics, people who are really into the Catholicism and the high art, the high church, where you have the bells and smells and ritual. Well, that's what appealed to me in a way, to be able to explore my psychic abilities, to have, and I had been, as a child, I had been I was a Bible thumper. And people in school, it shocked me when they went, "Oh, you were the skinny kid with the cowboy boots and the Bible." And I didn't remember that I was such a hardcore little Christian, but I was. And because I came out of my mother was a churchgoer, and I went, and because my life wasn't great as a child, but take my word for it, I had to have something. So I held on to my faith. And I wasn't terrible at pushing it on people or anything that's like it, but if I caught people doing things like, using the Lord's name in vain, I would just go left. Or anything like that. I couldn't even say the word hell. And I was just as squeaky clean as window cleaner. It was terrible. It was terrible. And probably very embarrassing now that I look back at it. But when I was 11, I knew, because I had, we had some things going on. Well, I knew there was other things, but I knew, like the TV stuff, I knew it was entertainment. I didn't think it was really a way of life. Like Dark Shadows, fabulous. The costumes, the seances, the witches. I loved the witch. She was amazing. I knew if she showed up, something exciting would happen because she was beautiful and mysterious and powerful. And it was good drama and good theater, but I understood it to be that. And then I understood, and the things like Bewitched or, I Dream of Jeannie. There were like these magical things, and I was around and exposed to those, but I didn't take them seriously going, that's real. I knew it was make-believe the way they were doing it. But, last night when I was on Kat's show, I was talking to her about that didn't have to be taught to read. I knew how to read when I was 3 and 4 years old, which made me, people wanted to babysit me because I was no trouble. Give me a book, and I would read a book, and I would understand it. And I didn't just have to have pictures. I could read it. So when I was 8, I started reading metaphysical books because it would be hard for people to understand now that every grocery store, every pharmacy, every supermarket of any sort or convenience store, once they started doing convenience stores, they had racks of books in them, and they had comic book racks. Every store you went into had a comic book. Now you have to go to a comic book store or to a book store. But then every store you went into, you had comic books, hundreds of comic books to look at. And you had books like, full of, paperback books of all sorts. But there was a small smidgen of science fiction and fantasy and the occult and all that, and spooky stories. So you could go into the pharmacy even and buy fantasy magazines and paperback books. So I started reading metaphysical books and ghost stories and books that really I grabbed onto. I understood them. And actually, the one thing I think I remember that's really ignited my brain was I was reading a book. I was at least 9 or 10, and I read about the Aberfan disaster, which happened in Wales, and it happened in '66. I was alive, but I was 4 years old. But by the time I was 10, I knew all about that story, and the things that really affected me were several of the children had premonitions before the disaster happened. And not only did the children do that, now if I remember correctly from 50 years ago, there were a lot of people who were having dreams about what happened beforehand, but they were going to their therapist and telling them, they could see this. And what the Aberfan disaster was in Wales, beautiful little countryside, but it was a mining town. And at the top of the mountains above the town, they had what they called coal tips, which was like the waste, the coal waste, the coal sludge. And it was huge. It was like 150 feet tall. Mountain, a tip of coal on a mountain that overlooked the town. And the people tried to get the mining company to take it down. They knew it was dangerous, and they couldn't do anything about it. The mining company was pretty evil, if you ever read any of the stories. It's just vile the way they did things. But these children were at least 2 or 3 of them had premonitions. One little girl, I think her name was Sharon. This is how it stuck in my head. She, about a week or so before the disaster, she went to her mother and said, "I'm not afraid to die." And her mother said, "Well, you're not going to die. You're only 10 years old. It's okay. You're just dreaming." And in the day or two before the disaster, she had a horrifying, dream or vision, and was so upset. But she had to go to school anyway. And what happened? These children were in school. It had been raining terribly, terribly, terribly. And that day, they only had to go to school till midday, and then they would have been off for a week. I think is what, if I remember correctly, that's what, they were excited. They were going to be out of school. They were going to go and get play, and do all this stuff. And they had just got into school and were starting their lessons, and they heard this rumble, and that mountain of sludge came down, covered the school, killed, there was a farm with a woman and 2 children, got the farm, came down like an avalanche, and covered the school. And there were children still sitting in their desk, that they were frozen in their desks. They were just covered in this sludge. Once it came down and covered you, it was like concrete. And it was just hard sludge. And there were children buried in this. And there were some of them in pockets. And some of them lived. One little boy was talking about, he was like 8 years old. And there was a little dead girl laying on his shoulder, and he was in a pocket. He was the last one to be saved. And it was just a horrifying thing. It's something that I feel some kind of connection to, because I've known it all my life. But the people had premonitions about it. And there was actually a little boy who had drawn a picture. He put it in a drawer. And after he was killed, because there were like 116 children killed and about 10 adults. I can't remember the exact number. But this little boy, his mother was digging through drawers, cleaning them out weeks after he had been killed. And there he had drawn the school, the coal tip, and at the end of it, at the top of it, he wrote the end. And it was a picture of the school covered in the coal. And so even though they were having premonitions, there was nothing they could do to stop that disaster. And the ones that were having the children that were having the premonitions all got killed. So when we have premonitions, we have to pay attention to them. I've had a premonition that saved me. One time I was about 18 years old, getting off a bus, and I heard a voice in my head say, "Stop." And it had been storming. And I stopped as the door opened, and I didn't move, and a electrical line fell down right where I was. I would have been standing right there. So I paused because I listened. I have had other times that I didn't know what was coming. I just knew to be aware. Because like when I got attacked, I knew for a week beforehand something was going to happen. I just didn't know how. And then when it started, when the people who were going to attack me were attacking the person that was with me first, and I went, this is it. It's happening. How do I get out of here? And I couldn't escape, so I knew it was coming, so I had to – it helped me protect myself, though, because while I was being attacked and kicked and they were trying to break my nose and shove it up my brain, I was able to cover my nose. I was able to keep them from doing that. I was able to keep them from doing several things that would have killed me instantly. So, but I had to go through the disaster I went through, and I lived through it, and it changed me, and now I'm where I'm at. The children that were killed in the disaster, it's a terrible thing. But when they come back, because I believe in reincarnation, I believe life recycles, energy recycles. And so they'll come back into this life with some knowledge that they didn't have before. And So it's terrible, but we learn from our previous deaths and we learn from our previous lives. And it's just ongoing because for me, I'm a reincarnated baby, 2 babies that didn't make it. And I learned a lot about what was going on in my past life with those babies and past lives before. I've learned so much. But in the early part of my life, I was very underdeveloped. And it took decades to get me to the level where I just function now. I didn't all of a sudden just become a little all-knowing little piece of light. I learned. And I learned how to be aware and how to find my intelligence, because I was raised to believe that I was stupid and ugly. And when I was young, I thought I was stupid. And I had to rise above that and prove to myself that I was a worthy person. I wasn't stupid. I had innate ability. I had innate mentality. And I had to overcome the abuse of that and become the person I am. And when I started out in metaphysics, I'm still doing what I wanted to do, which is I wanted to be basically a social servant and help people. I wanted to do readings. I wanted to be a healer. I wanted to do readings and use my abilities that I knew somewhere I had. I wanted to make that work. And so the 18-year-old, when I joined a group I did when I was 18, they made us have a statement. And what are you doing? Why are you doing it? What is your intent? What do you want the outcome to be? So, 40-something years ago, I said, I want to be able to do readings, help people, be a spiritual guidance if I can. And here I am at 60 doing just that. That's exactly what I wanted. That's exactly what I'm doing. It hasn't changed one iota in that case, except for the fact of being a healer, because I've learned that your illnesses are something, they're a result, we used to call it dis-ease. So disease is dis-ease. But things that happen to you, they're a lesson, and there's something for you to look at. If you don't need it, sometimes you lose it, and sometimes you can overcome it. If it's something you can't overcome, then you have to have the ability to figure out, well, all right, I have this time. What have I got to finish up? What have I got to do before this ends, before this cycle ends, before I have to come back and figure out something else? So you begin to look at life in a different way. I look at life right now. I'm finishing up anything I want to get accomplished. And then the next time I get to go, it's, all of this has been gravy because I finished what I needed to in this life. So that's part of our journey. But we are going to have to go to a break. So all of you out there in the dark, don't touch that dial. I'll be right back.
You're listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting, the best in paranormal talk, only on Paranormal Experience Radio, broadcasting live out of Birmingham, Alabama.
Oh, come on. I'm Southern, but... Nope.
That'll do. Hello, I am Kat Hobson, host of Paranormal Experience here on WBHM Digital Broadcasting out of Birmingham, Alabama. I enjoy having guests from all areas of the paranormal, from ghosts to ufology to cryptids and beyond. You'll find some of the best researchers in their fields bringing you some great information. Join me on Wednesday nights from 8 to 10 p. Eastern here on WBHM Digital Broadcasting.
Since 1948, Fate magazine has brought you reports of the strange and unknown, all of them true. Fate Radio is carrying on that tradition, bringing you the unusual, macabre, strange, and bizarre. Join host Kat Hobson Sunday nights from 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern on WBHM Digital Broadcasting.
Listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting, the best in paranormal talk, only on Paranormal Experienced Radio, broadcasting live out of Birmingham, Alabama.
Welcome back to Universal Truths with Mark Fouts, coming to you from WBHM-DB in Birmingham, Alabama. And I am talking to you about light and dark things in metaphysics. And, of course, you know, it's very common for me to go down a rabbit hole, come back out the other end. So we'll talk about everything I can think of tonight on it. But to get it, I was talking about premonitions and things like that. Your psychic abilities are your alarm system, really. And it's like a dog has a sense of smell. And if the dogs and animals can smell fear, they can smell death. They can smell danger, sometimes ahead of the experience. And we're no different. But we're taught that if we're not taught about it, then we just don't know it, and it doesn't exist. So we have all of this development that's happened over thousands and thousands and thousands of years. And in the modern world, we've just chucked it out the window. We don't know ourselves. We don't know how to connect to the earth. We don't know how to connect to the storm and feel the energy source, you know, going through you, or the wind, you know, or how you can hold a tree, and the tree can take away stress because it's built to do that. It has roots. It has leaves at the top. It takes in energy and light and food and takes it down to the roots into the earth. We don't know how to ground ourselves or use our own roots to acquire what we need. And we're always circulating energy. And if you don't understand how you're taking it in, how to root it and ground it, then sometimes we get out of balance and we have an overflow of energy, or we have because of abuse or depression or drinking or drug use, we get our auras damaged. And as babies, we have a protective aura. It's new, it's shiny, it's all good. And then when we get to teenage years, when we're going through puberty, that changes the energy, and sometimes the fields get warped, and we don't have as good of a protective system. And then as adults, as we become more grounded and understand who we are, your system kind of falls back into normalcy. But if you have things that you're doing or that are happening to you that damage your aura or your protective system, then you're vulnerable. And people really don't realize in the human experience, because there are so many people I know, and I'm one of them, I had a terrible childhood, terrible 20s, just terrible. And most of my friends that I know, except for one, I know one person who had a great childhood, fantastic childhood. Most people I know, especially in the psychic field, they had terrible relationships with their parents. People who were orphaned, people who had parents who didn't want them, or parents who couldn't understand how to take care of them. They didn't have security of home or somebody to love them and say it's going to be okay. I've known plenty of people that had parents that resented having them, but they're the ones who had them. And, in my childhood, when I was 6, I was praying for my family to adopt me out, to let me possibly find, or I asked them if I was adopted, and they thought that was hysterical, but I was still kind of like hoping, well, maybe there's a family out there who really wants me, So when I sit amongst the psychics and friends that I have that are working, they all have these horror stories. And as children, we didn't have the ability to ground or protect ourselves or be protected. We were left to the wolves, really. And it's more common than most people know. Most people I know did not have a good childhood, and most of them didn't have a good adulthood. And and it was very common to have a drunk parents, people on your parents on drugs, being abandoned, being in the system where you're bounced around from one foster family to the other, possibly finding a nice person or possibly landing in a pot of people who just wanted you for the money that you were bringing in. Not stable, nurturing childhoods. So, but somehow they survived. Somehow they came out liking people. Somehow they want to help people, and they can use their experience to help the others. So I'm going to kind of go into how we navigate life, because life is, I think we have a fantasy, especially as the American dream, that you have a wonderful childhood, you grow up, loved mom and dad, mom and pop, and then they give you this security and they send you into the world to be the best that you can be, and they're there for you. And the truth is 90% of that doesn't happen. And as a matter of fact, there are a lot of children who grew up not knowing if they were going to live to be 18 years old because of the abuse and the dramas. So that affects you, yourself, and your psychic understanding. And we have to be gentle on our children, in a way. Now, we have some of the things that have gone. Now, when I was young, I was raised in the era of violence. If they were mad at me, it didn't matter that I did or didn't do anything. Sometimes I was just handy. So if they decided to go after me, they would just snatch me up. Now, there are a couple times in my life I deserved a spanking. But what I got otherwise it was not spankings, it was beatings, kind of thing. And but I came out a pretty tough kid. I came out a pretty tough person. And I don't know, but it's kind of like going through the fire. So a lot of these people, a lot of you out there, you're having a bad life. You're having a depression life. You're having children you don't know what to do with because you weren't raised to know how to deal with a child. You didn't know, and they're not like a pet rock. They are a spirit that's put into this vessel, and they have to become, and you have to be able to protect them and let them become and let them rise to be the spirit that they are. They aren't there for your physical abuse or to use as your punching bag. And anything that you did that was done to you, don't repeat it with your child. Try to be stable. And then I have people who come in all the time. They have a psychic child. What are they going to do with that? And they want to be there for them. It's a modern metaphysical family. They want to be there for their child, but they don't know what to do. And actually, as a child, you have to not interfere with it. You have to give them boundaries and let them know, well, maybe other people don't need to know this. You just come to me and tell me, because the outer world is going to be very cruel about you see ghosts, you see this, you see that. Because when I was 6 years old, I was already having psychic visions and psychic abilities and seeing ghosts and having the crap scared out of me and not having anyone understanding what to do with me. They just wanted me to shut up and go away, and that's what happened. And then my psychic experiences were a little negative because I was scared of it, because I was being taught it was something bad. And instead of going, well, this is nature, this is something I was born to and born with, and it's like being an artist, and I just have a different talent. And it's okay that you see a dead person, but what is that dead person doing, So, and two, if someone comes in and they're having an experience, a poltergeist experience or a ghost experience, and there's a child involved, they don't have to pay me. It's like, show me where the address is. Let me get in there and let's get this out. Let's protect that child. If a child is being scared, let's finish this. Let's take care of that. Then we'll deal with other issues. So in the next part of and we're about to have to take a break at the top of the hour. And when we come back, I will go into a little bit of how to protect yourself, how some things work, how does a binding work, how does that work in your head, how do you control the energy you're putting out to stop energy from getting to you, and how to protect your system so that you don't have attacks from dark energy or people who are bothering you. Because right now we're having drive-by spells, we're having people putting hexes on people, and which is something that's always is. So we're going to deal with that. But we're going to have to go to a break right now. So all of you out there in the dark, don't touch that dial. I'll be right back.
Live from NPR News in Washington, I'm Louise Schiavone. Authorities in southern Ukraine claim the Russian military has abducted nearly 300 Ukrainians from Russian-occupied territory. NPR's Joanna Kakissis reports from Dnipro that dozens of underage children have been separated from their parents.
In a statement, the Zaporizhia region's child welfare unit says Russian troops have separated at least 36 children from their parents. NPR spoke to eyewitnesses of one such separation earlier this month when Russian soldiers pulled the mother of a 4-year-old girl off an evacuation bus in the occupied city of Mangush. The eyewitnesses, as well as the mother and child, are evacuees from Azovstal. They sheltered at the massive steel plant in the occupied port city of Mariupol for weeks until the United Nations and International Red Cross evacuated them. Authorities in Zaporizhia have confirmed at least 271 total abductions in Russian-occupied areas. Joanna Kakissis, NPR News, Dnipro, Ukraine.
Flags are flying at half-staff over federal buildings, including the White House today, and will continue to do so for 5 days. As NPR's Tamara Keith reports, President Biden ordered it to mark the looming milestone of 1 million COVID deaths in the United States.
Even with widely available treatments and vaccines and boosters, several hundred people in the country are dying every day, a loss Biden reflects on in these recorded remarks.
1 million empty chairs around the family dinner table, each irreplaceable losses, each leaving behind a family, a community, forever changed because of this pandemic.
This comes as the White House presses Congress to pass billions of dollars in new funding for COVID prevention and treatment. The legislation is stalled. Tamara Keith, NPR News, the White House.
Stocks fell on another volatile day. The Dow ended down about 100 points. As NPR's Raphael Nam reports, more new data out today shows inflation starting to ease, but not enough for comfort.
The Dow paired some of its earlier declines late in the day, but still fell for a 6th day in a row. The S&P 500 also fell. The latest factor at play, the Producer Price Index, which measures prices at the manufacturing level. It surged 11% in April from a year ago. That was a little lower than in March, but it's still quite high. So it's not only consumers that are impacted by inflation, the country's producers are too. With inflation high, the Federal Reserve may need to raise interest rates significantly, stoking fears of a potential recession. How to avoid a recession will be the top priority for Fed Chair Jerome Powell, who just got confirmed to a new term. Raphael Nam, NPR News.
On Wall Street at the close, the Dow settled at 31,730, losing 103 points. The Nasdaq picked up 6 points, closing at 11,370. This is NPR News. There will be no Triple Crown winner in horse racing this year. Rich Strike, the long-shot horse that stunned the racing world by winning last weekend's Kentucky Derby, will not run in the upcoming Preakness Stakes. That's the second of 3 races that make up the Triple Crown. NPR's Tom Goldman has more.
Rich Strike's owner, Rick Dawson, says the decision to skip the Preakness was based on a plan to give the horse 5 or 6 weeks rest between races. The Preakness happens 2 weeks after the Kentucky Derby. It's obviously tempting, Dawson notes in a statement, to change course now and run the Preakness. However, he says, after much discussion and consideration, we are going to stay with our plan of what's best for Richie. Dawson says the plan is to compete June 11th in the Belmont Stakes, the last and longest of the Triple Crown races. Rich Strike overcame 80-1 odds to win the Derby cleanly. This week, the Kentucky Horse Racing Commission said all drug samples from the Derby were cleared. Tom Goldman, NPR News.
Springtime fires in the West have taken a toll on land and property. Almost 1,000 homes were evacuated in coastal Southern California, where a wildfire scorched at least 20 homes in the Orange County community of Laguna Niguel. Firefighters say the blaze raced up the canyon, fueled by dry conditions and western winds. In New Mexico, fire has destroyed more than 300 homes and other buildings, and fires that have been burning since early April. The Hermit's Peak Calf Canyon fire started with a prescribed U.S. Forest Service burn that went out of control. I'm Louise Schiavone, NPR News, Washington.
We all have moments where our limits are tested. What I want to talk about is how we define those limits and what it means to exceed them. I'm Jay Williams. Check out my show, The Limits, where I talk to people who have overcome theirs and achieved great things in business, sports, and culture. Listen to The Limits from NPR.
Welcome back to WBHM Digital Broadcasting out of Birmingham, Alabama. The time is 5 minutes after the hour.
The Truth with Mark Fouts, coming to you from WBHM-DB in Birmingham, Alabama. And, of course, I'm in beautiful Pensacola, Florida. And right now, let me tell you what, it is a psychic center because there's so many ghosts and psychics and metaphysical people. It blows my mind because where I came from, I was living in the woods, basically in Lafayette, Georgia, and there just wasn't any of this. Then I come here, and it's like, ding dong, the door opens, and whoa, I'm a psychic. I'm making a living with my psychic stuff. I'm able to go to work at a great store and meet all these people that are so interesting and so fascinating. And I try to never be jaded. I hear stories and things that still are exciting and like it's like being the man on the moon. You know, there are things. There always is going to be something you ain't heard about before, or you ain't seen, or at least I like that. I like to be surprised. Now, of course, there's always going to be something wicked that I've seen that I ain't seen before or had to deal with, but I have to understand energy because all of it's energy. If you understand energy, you can always take care of a situation. If there's something bad or something ghosty or someone has something in their house that they need to move on, because you can't destroy energy. So, and if you think of it only as a religious thing, then if it's not, if it doesn't believe in the religious dogma you're shooting at it, then it's going to laugh at you. Or it's going to go, you want a demon? You want a demon? Let me show you a demon. And then they'll show themselves. And so then you've taken a kind of benign energy and made it something else. You've added that energy that it's like, oh, okay, well, let's try that and see if that's what they want. Because I've gone into places that have had priests come to it and tried to cleanse it, and it didn't work. It just made it worse. But if you understand, everything is an energy. And you are an energy within, you're a little ball of energy, your aura, and your boundary around you that will teach, I'm going to talk to you about here in a minute, that imagine that the dimensional hallways, they're just like canals, and you're in that canal, and energy is coming around you all the time. So you're afloat in energy that comes around you. You can be exposed to all sorts of different things and all sorts of different experiences. And if you're too open and too inviting, sometimes there's just things that'll happen. Like in my house, I have a haunted mirror that I just think is a hoot. But I know how to protect myself and everything. And it's not a bad thing. It's actually a very nice energy. It's just a haunted mirror. But somebody else, it would freak them out to see someone, the top of someone's head, poking out, looking out, trying to see them. Someone else would think that's a demon or something. And it's not. It's actually a very nice little spirit who just absolutely loves that mirror and is in that mirror. Because it was in their place when they died, and it's not the soul of the spirit, it's the spirit, which is who we are that we create. Because when you're born, this is the way I believe. When you're being born, the soul is like a little sliver of energy that comes from a big pool of ancient information. And it has a little fiber optic thread that is attached to that sliver. Now, that's the soul. When you're being born, that little sliver meets with the body coming out the canal, and it goes inside the body, and then the soul is in the body to give you information, to give you knowledge. It's already the soul isn't young, only the body is. So you've got this little sliver with a tendril to it. It's like a fiber optic thread. And once you're born, because the umbilical cord is in the solar plexus, that little silver trend, that or goldish fiber optic thread feeds the soul. So that's why, and it kind of reaches out to your body from the solar plexus. So that's why people say you have a cord. And that cord feeds the spirit from the universal consciousness so that it doesn't have to feed on the body. So that's why you have a cord. It's the soul. If you cut that cord, then that soul energy is a very strong energy, and it will pull out minerals and energy from your body, and you'll get sick and die if you cut that cord sometimes, and if you don't know how to reinstate that or reconnect it. But the spirit is who you are from the moment your consciousness kicks in until you're dead. The spirit is who you are, who you created in this life. And it's around, the soul is inside of it. Think of the body as an envelope. Inside the envelope is the spirit, which is another envelope. Inside the spirit is the soul, which is another envelope. And then we're like a little canoe and the energy going down the dimensional layers. And when you die, the spirit and the soul separate from the body, and they go up through a large tunnel, which is really a dendrite. And the soul goes back following that little fiber optic thread back to where it came from. The soul is part of it, because it was in our body. It's electromagnetic plasma. So it is a kind of a jelly, an electromagnetic jelly with information in it. So when you go up through the big tunnel, the plasma part gets reabsorbed. And by the time you get up to the top of the tunnel and you're looking and going into the big neuron-colored energy fields, then it's just a purified version of the information your soul is, and you become it's like a book. Everything that you've recorded, your brain recorded 3 million hours worth of stuff, it downloads and it's information, and that's how you learn. And if you didn't learn what it was you went, because it's a challenge to come back to life. So when you come in, if you didn't learn what you felt like you needed to, you can repeat that, or you can change it and go for another option. But that's how I see how the energy works. So now when we do energy work and meditations, we're using our third eye, which activates the neurons in our brain. So you have the spine, which is basically where your chakras are. It's like an electrical system. And at the top of that spine is the skull and the brain. And in that brain, we have the pineal gland, which is the third eye, which if you cut that organ in half, it has the Egyptian folds of the eye of Horus. That's why it's called the third eye. Or that's why I think it's called the third eye, but it is the third eye. but it's regulated by the hypothalamus and the pituitary gland. The pituitary gland sends out messages. So when you're dying, all that information, when you're downloading, your brain is downloading it to the plasma. It's downloading before you die, and you're kind of like at a landing thing. It looks like a landing thing, but it's the pituitary gland, and everything downloads, and then all of a sudden it shoots up into a dendrite, into the universal brain. So you upload, you download, you upload. So when we do meditations, we're controlling it with that third eye and the neurons. When your aura starts from the top of your head, and the energy comes out the top of your head and goes around you like a sphere, just like planets. A lot of things are drawn into circles and spheres. So your aura comes out of your head from the top and encircles you, and it's your protective aura, your field. It's your CAT scan. It's your indicator. If you look at an aura, you can see the health and the development the person's going through. So it's your thumbprint. It shows everything. So if you're being exposed to metaphysical energies and spells and things like that, you have to have your aura working properly so you don't get infected with those energies, or they can't download into your field. And you control that through the third eye, through the neurons. Now, I'm going to talk to you about how that kind of functions a little bit, and how we can protect ourselves, how you can protect yourself and get that system working real easily, so that you can turn a little knob in your head so that you have a meditative state instantly, that your aura is in working shape, so that if you get exposed to something that's not good, you can be protected. So if you want to use a Ouija board, you go to it protected before, just opening a pre-made piece of board that has no blessing, no oils, no energy field around it, and take the door off the hinges and start talking to whatever's out there. There are ways to do it where you can do it in the proper manner, but we have to understand the tools that we use daily, and that also controls our psychic ability, because if your aura is in good working order, your third eye is opening good, your chakras are opening and functioning, and your psychic ability goes into top-notch working system. So I'm going to try, to explain that, but also how to explain how to use a little technique I teach people all the time. And actually, the lady, Tony Talley, that works with me, she started doing it to people to say, do this, and it just takes a moment. And I'm going to go through that, and I will go through the process of how the energy goes from your neurons to your hands, and how from your hands the energy goes into whatever you're creating, whether it be a spell, which all a spell is taking elements, energy elements, putting them together in together to get an end result, and then being able to magnetize that energy to send out to whatever. But it's the same thing with prayer. You're doing a prayer with your PSI energy, and you send it out. Well, it goes to where you send it because it's magnetized to a certain person or a certain place or a certain consciousness. So your prayers work, but there's a mechanism for it. It's not you just sitting there going, hey, God, and then God going, oh, I hear them. It's you're magnetizing it to a special person or place or deity, and you're creating this sphere, and when you release it, it's magnetized to go to that place. So your prayers work, and if you understand how that works, then the next time you do a prayer, then it works better, because now you understand the flow, and you let it flow from you, because whatever flows to you is going to come back to you. Why? Because we have an orbit. Everything is circular, and the energy you send out, it goes out, comes back. And so if you do a prayer, it goes to the place, and then it comes back to you. So we have to go to break, but when we come back, I'm going to show you how to control your energy. So all of you out there in the dark, don't touch that dial. I'll be right back.
You are listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting, Birmingham, Alabama.
Paratalk Radio is your one-stop for all things paranormal, the unknown, and the supernatural. Join us every Monday night at 8 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Central for discussions and guests on topics such as ghosts, hauntings, Bigfoot, UFOs, and more. This broadcast is rated M for mature and intended for listeners over 16 on paratalkradio.com.
Oh, come on. I'm Southern, but... nope.
That'll do. Hello. I am Kat Hobson, host of Paranormal Experience here on WBHM Digital Broadcasting out of Birmingham, Alabama. I enjoy having guests from all areas of the paranormal, from ghosts to ufology to cryptids and beyond. You'll find some of the best researchers in their fields bringing you some great information. Join me on Wednesday nights from 8 to 10 p. Eastern here on WBHM Digital Broadcasting.
Since 1948, Fate magazine has brought you reports of the strange and unknown, all of them true. Fate Radio is carrying on that tradition, bringing you the unusual, macabre, strange, and bizarre. Join host Kat Hobson Sunday nights from 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern on WBHM Digital Broadcasting.
Thank you for listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting out of Birmingham, Alabama.
Since 1948, Fate magazine has brought you reports of the strange and unknown, all of them true. Fate Radio is carrying on that tradition, bringing you the unusual, macabre, strange, and bizarre. Join host Kat Hobson Sunday nights from 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern on WBHM Digital Broadcasting.
The time is 23 minutes after the hour.
Fouts, I'm coming to you from WBHM-DB in beautiful Birmingham, Alabama. And I was talking about how our mechanism works, because we are an electrical system. How does our psychic stuff work? And, and it's like I said, the spine is, think of the spine as just an electrical stick. It has each little level of chakras, and if you understand those chakras, you can open those up or align them to get better energy, better growth, better health. And when we're using it for metaphysical work, you want to be able to control that and have that open, because then that electrical system feeds into the third eye, which is controlled or regulated by the hypothalamus, the pituitary gland. And then everything we think and feel and do goes straight up to the neurons and out into our little sphere of the aura, which is electromagnetic plasma. So now I'm going to explain, because we're talking, I've had to deal with people who were having some bad things happening to them. So I had to explain some things to them. So I'm going to explain it to you. Well, I'm going to explain bindings and things like that. Because when I lived in Chattanooga when I was younger, I had these people that just globbed onto me, and I didn't know. I had no clue. I was 18 years old. I was green as grass, but I had to go through this. And they were metaphysical, and I learned so much from them. And it was great, 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 until they decided they wanted to go from being great, great positive, because they weren't happy with, being happy or good things happening. They wanted to be in something more intense. And then it started, they wanted to be in something scary because they wanted to scare people. And they wanted to control people and scare people and all of this. And that was not what I signed up for. And the day I walked into this person, the leader's house, now we had been great friends for years, and it was fine. And then we had just started doing, a few years of the metaphysical, doing a group, which I enjoyed thoroughly because we were doing like Wicca stuff, positive things. Well, they, I guess, felt because I was their friend, and they thought I would be malleable because I was a very nice little, I was pretty laid back. And when they decided to change that and start going into something dark and harmful, because they wanted to harm people, they just thought I would be like a little Charlie Manson girl and go, sure. So I walked in one day, and they had a shrine of hate made for this girl that they just took some kind of offense over. And they wanted everyone to spit on this picture, say bad words to this picture, stick pins to this picture, and they wanted to hurt her. I mean, this was something, because I had kind of been away, and I came back, and it was just like, it was just like taking over with a whole new thing, because they weren't the metaphysical guidance, creatures they thought they were going to be, because they didn't put the work into it. And two, it's a lot of work. And they wanted to play, and they wanted to hurt people. And when I saw all that crap, I got the hell out of there. And they didn't expect that. They just thought I would go, sure, let me stick a pin in this picture. Tell me what to do, master. And I said, this is not what I signed up for. This is not what I'm doing. And I took off. And and then they wanted to hurt me. They really wanted me to die because I wasn't part of them anymore. And that happens a lot in metaphysics. People don't realize people will do that. So he had some training before that was pretty bad. And they started sending things after me to hurt me really badly. And it was very scary. Until my spirits taught me how to do a binding. And by doing an energy binding, it stopped. It stopped everything. And I was working in a metaphysical store, and one of them came in and said, "What did you do?" And I said, "I just don't know what you mean." But it stopped everything they were doing towards me. And it may have stopped them from doing stuff to anybody because they were wanting to hurt people. And it just, and several of them died from not too many years after that from just consumptive stuff, because the stuff they were dealing with just ate them alive. And I thought, I don't want that. I want to be nice. I want to help people. I don't want to hurt people. But also, you have to understand how to protect yourself so that you don't become the victim of that kind of stuff, or that you don't encounter something that you can't remove from your energy field. So I'm going to tell you some of this stuff. When you use a binding, when you do a binding, and you do them to not harm them, you don't harm them. What you're doing is you're just separating them from you and keeping it away from you. So the way a binding really kind of happens, from our neurons, when we think through our third eye, and that information goes through our neurons and it goes into our aura, we have like a little fiber optic. We're like a spider. We weave this little fiber optic thread that comes from the neuron down the left arm, through the left center of the left palm, across to the right palm, back up the right arm, back up to the top of the head. And whatever you're spinning, because you're kind of spinning information. So what you're doing, so you put the candles or whatever you're using to do the binding in between your hands. And when you begin to put information into it, see, it's all about magnetizing, taking different elements. And say like you have a candle in the center. Well, you put it between your hands and you're thinking what you want to happen. So what's happening is you're using your PSI energy, which actually has a little bit of your consciousness in it. So it's an aware energy. It does what you tell it to do. And you kind of spin a ball of energy around that candle. And what that is it's like a fiber optic balloon. And inside that fiber optic balloon is all of the things that you are sending. This is going to be the delivery system for the binding. And inside of that fiber optic balloon, you're telling it, if they speak my name, if they move against me, if they say these words, it's a frequency, it's a vibration. And as long as they leave you alone, nothing happens. And if they speak about you, or they're doing something to hurt you, or they put in that vibration, or they say certain things, it will vibrate that frequency to them, and it will download it into their aura. So as long as they don't bother you or say your name or do these things in a bad way, not just, talking about you, but I mean talking about you in a way that vibrates that frequency, they won't, it's their choice to be mean or do something bad or to be nice and not do anything. So you put all of that information into that sphere, and it makes a fiber optic sphere, which is completely made out of one little thread that's just woven. And then when you're finished with that energy, when you're finished with that candle or that message you're sending to their aura to do the binding, when you start to calm down and you've done your energy and you're starting to slowly come to the end of your energy work, the balloon gets like a little tail, like a tether, like a ribbon, and at the end of it, when you pinch it to finish it, it's magnetized. It's like a little magnet at the end of that tether. So when you send out the binding, you send it out in love, because you have an aura. You have an orbit. So if that energy comes back to you, you want it to be love. But you've put their name, their energy. A lot of times people have used photographs of the person, or, in voodoo, they use like hair and nails, because that has the energy trail to that person. But this isn't like voodoo, but this is that you have their energy in it so it can find them. You release it into your orbit. It follows the trail of them through whatever you used, whatever it was, whether it's their name or whether it's an item or whatever. It goes to their aura, and it just the magnetized tip just gets around their aura and in their orbit. And then if they turn to you to hurt you and start doing this vicious stuff, and they use your name, and they are purposely using it. It's their choice not to hurt you, or their choice to do something. If they don't speak all these things and don't do anything, nothing happens. But if they use your name, then that vibration, it's like and like I said, it's a fiber optic thread, like a spider web. It goes, ding, it vibrates. Then that little magnetized thing is able to go through that vibration and hook into their orbit. So as it goes around their orbit, the thread that was used to make that balloon of information, well, the information downloads from the inside of the balloon. So it downloads into their aura. And since they have an orbit and it's going around and around and around, the balloon that you made is made from one thread of fiber optic information. So as the information comes out of the balloon, goes into their aura, not just their orbit, but into their aura, and they've activated it. So it's in all the information downloads. Well, then the thread becomes unraveling, and it unravels from the balloon, but that thread goes around and around, and it goes in around their aura, and eventually all of that thread is surrounding their aura. So that's how they're bound. That's how the binding is worked. They are bound. Their information is held inside of their aura. So if they hadn't acted against you, that little balloon might have gone by them and come back to you. And if you send it in love, it would have, eventually unwound, and since it wasn't your information, it will eventually just deflate and then go back into your system. And if you send it in love, you get love back. But if the person activated it, then it's something for them to do. And then they have like a cocoon around them of that little fiber optic thread. That's what causes a binding. And it's the energy way of doing it. Now, I have lots and lots of people who come to my store or my spot in the store, and they don't know how to control their energy, and they're having to deal with bad things. So what I do is I tell them this little technique, and it's all visual, and it only takes a minute to do it. If you do it once a week for 3 weeks, you control your aura. But it's a 2-step kind of thing, or maybe even a 3-step. But here's the meditation. You can play this radio show back later if you need that information. But you imagine that you're on the beach at night facing the ocean, and you listen to the ocean for a minute. because the sound of the ocean in your head, it's your subconscious talking to you. So you just listen to the waves. You get relaxed. And you listen to the waves, you get relaxed, and then you always snap your fingers. But you go 1, 2, 3, snap, and you see the light coming out the top of your head. See it 1, 2, 3, flow down, cover your body, and you're covered in a sphere of white light. And then you go 1, 2, 3, have that light from the top of your head go down into your right hand, into your index finger, and you draw a circle around you in a clockwise manner with that light. That makes your boundary. You have a little white light circle around you. Then 1, 2, 3, you go back up, have that light glow out of the top of your head, and 1, 2, 3, have it flow down and fill that circle until you're a ball of white light. So then that's your aura. Your aura is a ball of light. And then at the count of 3, you see and feel a little knob about 10 inches away from your right temple, and you can reach up and turn that knob, and you go 1, 2, 3, turn that light up, 1, 2, 3, turn that light down. And you do it a few times until you're finished. And then when you're finished and you're ready to stop the meditation, you go 1, 2, 3, and you reabsorb the circle. The sphere, not the circle. The circle is around you, but 1, 2, 3, you absorb the sphere, and you wrap it around you like a blanket. Then you look down, you've got that circle around your light, and you reach up and turn that little knob. 1, 2, 3, turn it up. It's bright. 1, 2, 3, turn it down. It's dim. Don't ever turn it off. 1, 2, 3, turn it up. It's light. So when you're finished, then you go 1, 2, 3, dim that light down, and say circles dismissed but never broken. And then wake up from your meditation. And anytime you feel stressed or threatened, you can go 1, 2, 3, turn that dial up. You're in meditation. 1, 2, 3, turn it down. Always dim it down so that you don't waste energy. But at any time you can be in meditation, no matter what, in emergency. It helps wonders. Now, and it's the simplest thing in the world to do. But that puts you in control of your boundary, which is your filter, and your aura. But if you do that once a week for 3 weeks, you control your aura. And anything bothers you, you turn it up or you turn it down, and you're in your safe space. So we're going to have to go to a break, but we will be back. So all of you sitting out there in the dark, don't touch that dial. We'll be right back.
You are listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting, the best in paranormal talk, only on Paranormal Experience Radio, broadcasting live out of Birmingham, Alabama.
Oh, come on. I'm Southern, but... Nope.
That'll do. Hello. I am Kat Hobson, host of Paranormal Experience here on WBHM Digital Broadcasting out of Birmingham, Alabama. I enjoy having guests from all areas of the paranormal, from ghosts to ufology to cryptids and beyond. You'll find some of the best researchers in their fields bringing you some great information. Join me on Wednesday nights from 8 to 10 p. Eastern here on WBHM Digital Broadcasting.
Since 1948, Fate magazine has brought you reports of the strange and unknown, all of them true. Fate Radio is carrying on that tradition, bringing you the unusual, macabre, strange, and bizarre. Join host Kat Hobson Sunday nights from 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern on WBHM Digital Broadcasting.
You're listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting, the best in paranormal talk. Only on Paranormal Experienced Radio. Broadcasting live out of Birmingham, Alabama.
Welcome back to Universal Truths with Mark Fouts. We are here at WBHM-DB in beautiful Birmingham, Alabama. And I've just been telling people how to control their aura. And I do that in the store a lot. For people, even if they're not getting a reading, they'll come in and they're distressed. I'll say, sit down, let's do this. Because there's, or if they're having a problem, I teach them to do these things. And when people are experiencing psychic and metaphysical issues and don't know what to do, they feel unempowered, So you have to give them a tool. And once you have this tool, you're in control of something. You're in control of yourself. And if you don't want to deal with something, you can go 1, 2, 3, turn that dial down and not listen to it. If you're trying to sleep and you're too open and you're hearing spirits speak to you all the dang time, which happens, because when I started, believe me, I had to learn how to turn it down. That's how I came up with this technique, because I was like, honey, I gotta sleep. I gotta turn this down. And I would do that, and it worked. So you give, if you want to feed a person, you give them a rod and teach them how to fish. If you want someone to protect their aura and be able to control their exchange with other people in a metaphysical way, this is a way to get that controlled. And the more that you do this, the more your psychic abilities will come in a controlled manner, and it'll get clearer, and it will get more pertinent. You'll know what's right, what's wrong, and your instinct, you'll feel it in your solar plexus, which they call a gut instinct. And the first instinct you get is the correct one, even if everything else is saying, no, girl, do this. If your instinct says don't do it, then I stick with my first instinct. If I overthink it, I always make a boo-boo. But if I go with the gut instinct, even though someone else is going, no, they'll come back later and go, oh, that was right, because I stuck with the first thing, because my system is reading their system. My system is reading what's around me, around them, and it knows and sees ahead a lot because it's energy. It sees ahead of us, and it's like a little river. It's kind of just ahead of us a little bit, and it just makes you a better psychic. It makes you a better person, because you start to feel like you're not a little leaf floating in the water or in the wind, that you have an ability. You have an ability to say, this is the direction I want to go. This is what I want to look at. I don't want to look at that. And you can choose that. And you can choose not to be affected by bad things. And if you do these meditations and things before you do a Ouija board, then if you do what you're supposed to do, which is say hello, goodbye, you can use a Ouija board, turn it off, say goodbye, and not have things sticking to you. But I also suggest, making your own devices. I make my own devices. I charge the board, charge the paper, charge the ink, charge the art, charge the board for a week. Then I sit down, because then I have an energy field around it. I sit down, then I can control the turning the board on, the communication I have. If something is trying to override that, then I can turn it off. But if you just open a box of a Ouija board, don't do any preparation, don't do any prayer, don't do anything, and turn it on and then don't turn it off. That's what happens a lot. Then people end up with dead boyfriends following them home, or bad things. I think my favorite, it's a terrible thing to say a favorite. It's not a favorite story, but the most interesting story I knew some witches that in the 70s, these two little girls were using a Ouija board. They weren't witches, but they knew these people. And they were using the boards, and one girl wanted to be inhabited by the spirit of Marilyn Monroe. The other one wanted Jean Harlow. So the one that got Jean Harlow, she says, I want to be like Jean Harlow. And she fell over in renal failure because Jean Harlow was dead. And she had died from renal failure. She didn't say, I want the beauty and the talent. I want to be her. Well, Jean Harlow is dead. So the girls started dying. They called the witches. The witches came in, surrounded the bed, and drove that spirit out. And the girl immediately became well. So you have to be careful. Your words, when you say is something out there, there's something out there. And there's something looking for a spot. And if they see you looking like a little light on a foggy street and you're going, is there something out there? And I've taken the door off the hinges and you can come in. You got to rethink that, because there's always going to be something that wants to get in here. Because a lot of times when things die, or if they're not human, but they're energies, but they go to other places, they are looking for life. They're looking for energy. They're looking for food. They're looking for a place. And you have to be careful not to make yourself a boarding house for energies you don't have any clue what it is. So always use your protective system. Use that little technique. Turn it up. Always remember when it's finished, dim it down, not off, and say circle is dismissed but never broken. That tells your brain that you're putting it on hold. When you want to use it, then you just turn it up and use it, and then you do the same thing. And the more you do it, it's like flexing a muscle. Before you know it, you're going to be a functioning psychic person. It may not be the level of what you want, but it's the beginning. Because if you control your energy, that's the beginning of everything. And it begins communication. It begins meditation. It means communication with the world that's just under the skin. Just under the skin. We have so much in us that it's mind-blowing. So I just hope that I've given you a tool to help you that will make your life a little better. And if you need to, teach it to somebody. But like I said, this radio show will be on online after we do this. So if you missed it, you go back and replay it. You look up Universal Truths, Mark Fouts, and you'll find where the Spreaker site is, and you can just listen to the show again, that part of it. And hopefully it helps someone. If I help one person, it's worth it. It's worth it to go through everything I've gone through to help or save one person. And if there's any children involved, always jump in there, get spirits out of your house if it's scaring a child, if there's something bad. There's always something to do, but don't treat it religiously. Treat it as an energy. It's an energy. You can always manipulate energy. You can't always manipulate a religious spirit that just will look at you and laugh and say, what's that? If it doesn't go to that covenant or it isn't held to those rules, it may spit in your face and turn your life inside out. But if it's an energy, you can always push it out, change the locks, and clean your house and be done with it. So tonight, I hope that y'all have enjoyed this show. I hope that it's been informative. And I'm going to tell you, anyone that wants to contact me live, see me, I work out of Live and Let Live, 4622 South Leafield Road in Pensacola. And if you look up Live and Let Live Metaphysical Store, Pensacola, there's a website, phone number. Call Sal. He owns the store, and Matthew, who is a practitioner who helps him with the store. They can help you with metaphysical issues. And I'm there as a reader, and so is Tony Talley and Terry O'Connor. And sometimes we have a guest. Right now, on and off, we have a guest named Dana Green. So all of us do different kinds of readings, but we all work within our fields. All of us have done it for a while. I've done it 42 years. Some of them have done it 20 years and 30 years. And so you come in and you go to the person you're magnetized to and get what you need. And it is a place, they have all these crystals and tools and things. It's mind-blowing, really. And like I said, I've worked in metaphysical stores before, but it is mind-blowing. But if you want to see me, I'm there usually. I sometimes come in Tuesdays, but I'm there Wednesday through Friday, 2 to 7. Saturday, I'm there 11 to 7. And if you want to reach me, the best way to reach me personally sometimes is on Facebook. So if you look up Chattanooga Chills, that's my online ghost story I have in my books from when I lived in Chattanooga. So Chattanooga Chills or Mark Fouts, Fults, you can look me up on Facebook. And that's where I'm at the most. I'm old, so I'm kind of, color and movement. I'm on Facebook a lot. And if you want to look up my website, Mark Fouts, also known as the Fat Psychic, because I'm going to do the Fat Psychic cooking show coming up, which I'll cook food for my mean old grandma's good old cookbook. And while you're eating your cookies, I'll tell you a ghost story. So that's coming up. That's going to be fun. You can go to my site, look up the radio shows, look up the books, look up the videos, look up how to contact me. And I'm at that store with my haunted doll collection. I've got a big doll I got to take in tomorrow. So, and they go anywhere from the 1860s on up. And I have a really very haunted one that the eyes change when she's being held. So, and they weren't made to do that, my dears. So come and see me. If you need me, you know how to reach me. There's a way to reach me out there. And I'm so grateful to have this radio show, to have this to talk to you. And I'm so grateful for everyone that listens. And, I want you to go out there in the life. Don't be afraid of anything. Try things. Don't be afraid to be psychic. Don't be afraid to be gentle. Don't be afraid to stand up for yourself. Don't be afraid of life. It's the experience. You're here, have it. You got to do it. And the other side wants this. They want your information. They want your experience. So go out there, try to conquer being sad, try to conquer abuse, try to conquer your getting in your own way. Try to get yourself situated, get yourself in tune with your mind, and have the best life you're going to have. I'm turning 60. This is my second 30-year stretch, and I'm living life to my fullest. Please live to the fullest of what you have. And I'm going to have to say goodnight to you. And I'll be back here Thursday next week, probably with a guest. And you won't have to hear me droning on for a while. Say, that psychic Ham, he went on for a while. But I enjoy talking to you. I hope that it's been beneficial to you. And I wish to all of you a good night.
You are listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting, Birmingham, Alabama.